The Civil War consisted of many more scouting expeditions, actions, and skirmishes than engagements or battles. One such skirmish occurred locally in June 1864 at the small crossroad community known as Hanging Rock, Virginia. Pitting a small Confederate cavalry unit against the supply train of a division of over 16,000 troops. The result illustrated what could happen when supply trains were not protected. The skirmish at Hanging Rock consisted of the movement of units, battle action, and the result of the skirmish.
After having parked in the North Trailhead parking lot, begin your journey at the introduction sign for Hanging Rock.
Following 2 days of fighting at Lynchburg, during which his forces were defeated by those of Confederate General Jubal A. Early, Union General David Hunter began a retreat toward West Virginia. Hunter feared an assault by the forces of Early. His route of escape followed the Lynchburg-Salem Turnpike. Early did indeed send his army in pursuit of Hunter's Federals. As Hunter was plodding along with his 11-mile-long trains on the Lynchburg-Salem Turnpike, Early ordered Major General Robert Ransom to lead his cavalry over the peaks of Otter to Buchanan, Virginia. He was then to pursue Hunter along the Great Road, modern Route 11, to intercept Hunter at Salem, Virginia. All of these roads followed by Ransom were better and allowed the Confederate forces to overtake Hunter's column.
At stop number 2, walk beyond the starting point 10 feet to the statue of the Confederate officer. For stop 3, turn around and move forward to encounter the North Trailhead information marker entitled The Battle of Hanging Rock, a Union Retreat Disrupted. For stop number 4, turn to your left rear and walk 10 feet to encounter the information marker entitled United Daughters of the Confederacy Monuments. For stop number 5, continue walking along the path for 50 yards to walk under the road bridge. After the road bridge, continue walking straight ahead for another 50 yards to the beginning of the fire trail and look to the right at the ford location where General Hunter's column crossed Mason's Creek.
Hunter's retreating forces included a plodding wagon train of ambulances, supply wagons, artillery, and munitions. On the morning of June 21st, 1864, Hunter's column was delayed by having to ford Mason's Creek, which is seen behind me, while also engaging the narrow gap between steep bluffs at Hanging Rock just north of Salem, Virginia, which is basically all around us here at this location, but you can see that to my right rear, the Hanging Rock. In addition, local militia had blocked the road with fallen trees, which further slowed the retreat. At this point, Hunter's wagon train stalled and was left unprotected because U.S. Brigadier General Alexander Duffy had moved his cavalry ahead to Catawba Mountain. After burning the wool mill and depot at Monsac, Virginia, and cutting telegraph wires and burning the rail depots in Big Lick, which is now known as Roanoke, Virginia, and here in Salem, Virginia. This set of circumstances created a prime opportunity for the Confederates to attack Hunter's column. The scene was set for a skirmish on June 21st, 1864, which would later become known as the Battle of Hanging Rock.
For stop number 6, look to the left at the high ground which overlooks Mason's Creek. This was the location of General McCausland's cavalry when they first encountered General Hunter's supply wagons and artillery. For stop number 7, walk up the stairs to your right. The view is of Hanging Rock at the present, looking northwest of the crossroads, with Hunter's escape route being located to the extreme right of this photo. For stop number 8, walk across the gasoline station parking lot to the crosswalk at Kessler Mill Road. Carefully cross Kessler Mill and continue 50 yards. Stop and turn around to face northwest, looking at Hanging Rock Road, also known as Virginia 311. This view is of McCausland's flank attack movement of the Confederate cavalry on the supply train of the retreating Union Army. For stop number 9, turn around to continue walking for 50 yards to the southern end of the access road used by McCausland's cavalry to move to the high ground used to attack the retreating Federals. The peak of the high ground occupied by McCausland's cavalry to attack the Federal trains is shown here.
Just before 9 o'clock a.m., Confederate Major General Robert Ransom turned over his frontline cavalry to Confederate Brigadier General John McCausland, and some 60 of those troops rode down through Hanging Rock Gap to attack the exposed wagons and artillery. McCausland's cavalry spotted the stalled Union artillery. Early's infantry had not caught up with Hunter's army, so Ransom sent McCausland with only a portion of his cavalry to strike the Union column. Positioned near the Garst House, near the Hanging Rock Gap in which we are standing, McCausland ordered the attack by his cavalry troopers against the Union column.
For stop number 10, return the way you walked to the location of the view of McCausland's flank attack on the supply train of the retreating Union Army.
Union guns and wagons sustained heavy damage. Wheels were torn away, cannon trunnions broken, and limbers pushed into Mason's Creek. McCausland's troops burned ammunition wagons, killed and captured horses, confiscated guns, and took prisoners. The Confederate cavalry played havoc with the Union cannons, munitions wagons, and their drivers. When he heard the explosions and noises of battle, Hunter ordered Brigadier General William Averell's cavalry forward along with infantry support to fight off McCausland's assault. The arrival of Averell's soldiers forced the Confederates to pull back from the gap. McCausland was forced to abandon the gap, allowing Hunter to continue his retreat.
For stop number 11, carefully cross Kessler Mill Road at the crosswalk. Return across the gasoline station parking lot to the stairs. Descend the stairs and turn left to cross under the road bridge. Return to the statue of the Confederate officer and return to the sign at the entrance of the North Trailhead parking lot. Continue to the curve in the road at the entrance to the parking lot.
The result of the skirmish was the loss of about 100 Union soldiers killed. After the Battle of Hanging Rock, General Grant conveyed 2 messages to Chief of Staff General Halleck explaining the impact of the action on Hunter's column. On June 24, 1864, Grant explained, "I find the affair of the 22nd," and I think he meant the 21st. The exact timing of that was not nailed down by that point in time. It was so soon after the skirmish. But he said the affair of the 22nd was much worse than I had heretofore learned. Our losses, nearly all captures, were not far from 2,000 and 4 pieces of artillery. The affair was a stampede and surprise to both parties and ought to have been turned in our favor. Richmond paper of yesterday states that Hunter, at last accounts, was at Salem, retiring by the route taken by Averell last fall. On June 27, 1864, Grant conveyed to Halleck Petersburg, Virginia papers of the 25th state that Hunter is striking for Jackson River Depot, about 40 miles north of Salem, which would be up this road right behind me to Newcastle and beyond, and say that if he reaches Covington, which they suppose he will do with most of his forces, but with loss of material, he will be safe. The same paper accuses Hunter of destroying a great amount of private property and stealing a large number of wagons, horses, and cattle.
For stop number 12, you have reached the end of the tour.
Ultimately, General Hunter escaped north to the safety of West Virginia. The failure of federal troops to capture Lynchburg or to effectively disrupt the economy of Southwest Virginia created a situation where the war continued into 1865.
The skirmish at Hanging Rock in southwestern Virginia in June 1864 was a temporary, limited success for the Confederacy. This action and several others like it along the retreat route north into West Virginia diminished General Hunter's forces to the point that his division was effectively out of action for over a month. In his 2002 book entitled And Keep Moving On, The Virginia Campaign, May to June 1864, author Mark Grimsley explained that there were 2 significant results of the action at Hanging Rock. First, the salt works in Saltville, Virginia, and the ordnance forges at Wytheville, Virginia, were protected from Union attack, ensuring that the Confederacy would have ammunition to continue the war. Second, Hunter's withdrawal from the Shenandoah Valley opened the way for Confederate General Jubal Early to freely move north into Maryland, eventually threatening Washington, D.C. Ultimately, these results simply delayed the inevitable end for the Confederacy. The handwriting was already beginning to be seen on the wall for the South, but it would take almost another year and many thousands of casualties before Lee's surrender at Appomattox.